Hey guys, it's Chris and I'm back here with another lesson for you on my YouTube channel. This week we're going to go over the G chord as far as CAGED theory goes. In the last few videos I gave you an introduction to CAGED theory and showed you the 5 open chords that CAGED theory has a basis of. I've also shown you the C chord and the A chord in this 5-note structure. This 5-chord structure. So now we're going to move on to the G chord. The G chord is probably one of the most common ones you ever hear. Any song in the world is always started with a G chord. You know, it's a very comfortable bass, it's a very warm sounding chord. Lots of people, when they're looking for a guitar that they really like and they're looking for a very nice sound out of it, they strum that G chord. A G chord can tell you a lot about a guitar before you even purchase it, you know. So the G chord isn't just one of the most common chords, it's one of the most reliable and relied upon chords in music in general. So you're going to see people play that a lot in pop music, rock music, really anywhere. But it's a very relied upon chord and there's different variations of it. More on that in future videos, but let's stick to the basics for this week. So for this week, I just want you to get familiar with playing a G chord. Now a G chord is summarized by 3 fingers pressing down on the neck here. The first one we're pressing down with is going to be my middle finger, and it's on my 3rd fret on my low E. And that's a G, okay? And then the next one we press down on is our 5th string, which is our A string. And we're going to press down on the 2nd fret, and that's your B. And then down here, on your high E, you're going to press on the 3rd, which is another G, and that's up a couple octaves from this guy. So with those 3 strings, and these 3 frets, and the open strings in between, we get a nice sounding G chord. And some people will actually add the 3rd string here on the 2nd, or sorry, the 3rd fret here on the 2nd string for a more full chord. And some people remove it. And I just want you to hear the difference there. I think it's preferential, honestly. It's whatever you want to do with it. Others may argue to the contrary, and that's fine. This is a little bit more of a difficult chord to move around the neck because if you don't have huge fingers, which I certainly do not, as you can see, I don't have big fingers at all, it's a little bit of a challenge to move it around the neck like you would normally want to do. So just playing an open chord isn't so bad. But playing it barred is a little bit more of a challenge until you start getting up to the higher frets. Even then, it's still a little bit of a challenge. So I'm going to do my best to explain that one to you as well as I can, but it's a difficult one for me to play in particular. It's probably the most challenging bar chord you can play. So to start with that, I've given you the open chords or the open strings that you should be playing and the closed strings you should be playing with. I want you to strum those strings individually. And you should get nice, clear, clean, ringing notes throughout all 6 of these strings. And all 6 are played in this chord. Now it's important again that our lowest bass note here is what is denoting what the chord name is. So here, our lowest bass note is a G. And this is our G chord, our open G chord. Now here you can see that's where we're playing it in the open position with open strings in between. So those are the open strings that we're going to have to now bar once we move this up into a barring position. Now normally what I would do is I would tell you, okay, this is how we're playing it, we move it up, and you gotta bar these few. As you can see, my fingers don't really reach, so you get some hums, buzzes, and dead notes there that aren't even actually playing. It's kind of a difficult position to actually play in, so you know, don't fret if you can't play it properly. All you need to know is that you're in your typical G open chord shape here, that when you move it up one, you're going to be barring your open notes again. Now your open notes in this case are going to be your D, G, and B string. which were, oddly enough, the 3 strings you were just pressing down on the 2nd fret in your A chord when we were playing the open A. So in your G chord here, if you want, you can jump up to a place that's more comfortable, and that's probably going to be the easiest way to show you this. So when you're doing this guy, okay, and we move up, you're going to have to press down here. And it's difficult. And you may just want to even get rid of this bass note here. That may be probably the more intelligent thing to do when you're barring this chord, because you want to keep your shape and you want to keep the sound of the G chord that you're moving around, but you don't want to lose notes, you don't want to lose structure. So probably one of the best things you can do for yourself is just remove that bass note and have it be understood that that's what you're playing. So normally what you would do here is you'd want to play like this. It's probably just going to be a whole lot easier if you remove that bass note and you play like that. So what I've effectively done is I've moved my G chord around, and instead of stretching my finger out and getting buzzy notes that don't fit in, I've removed a note, but I've still kept my structure. So I guess a good way to break that down would be, I'm in my open G chord position, and I want to move it, so let's move it up a fret, okay? Normally I would just bar back here, but doing that really puts my hand in a compromise. So I'll remove this ring finger, and I'll get my barred, and I'll still strum 5 out of the 6 strings. Now what I'm doing is I'm playing a G sharp chord here. Now that's in the shape of G, but it's a G sharp bar chord. Now again, we're barring like we have been. We're barring our open strings and moving it up the neck. Now we're keeping the same shape that we're playing. Now the difficulty with this, again, as I've said, is I can't play my lowest bass note in this case because I have a difficulty with my fingers being smaller. But I'm still getting 99% of that sound. So you're getting the sound of my G sharp bar chord. We're just not getting the low bass note there. But it's important to note that that is the chord you're playing. Even though you're not playing it, this is your root note. And that is the chord that you're playing. So even though I'm not playing this one note, I am playing my G sharp here. And if my finger could reach and play that, I would be playing the entire chord with that low bass note. So even though I'm not playing that note, it's important to understand that this is your root note that you're basing this off of. So again, if I wanted to take this shape that I've been playing, and I moved it up one and did that, now I'll move it up one again, okay? And from here, you'll see I just moved it up a fret and played, and then I checked it against my open A chord. So we actually just moved our G open chord up 2 frets and played an A chord in the G position. And once again, you'll notice that I didn't play that low bass note, and that's because my fingers don't really stretch over that far, but it's unspoken that I am still playing the octave, and that is my lowest bass note in that position. Therefore, that is the chord I'm playing. So that's the trickier part that I'm teaching you here with your G chord here that we're moving around, and I'm trying to really dig on this topic because it's important that you understand it. And again, if you don't, it's okay. Just write me in the comments or send me a message on my Facebook page. Let me know. I'd be more than happy to go into further detail or make an amendment video that explains in more detail what's going on. I'd love to give more information if possible to help you guys. So again, what I want you to practice here is your open G chord. And then I want you to practice each individual string. And make sure that you get clean notes out of that. Practice a strumming pattern to make sure you're comfortable with it. And while you're at it, it would be nice for you to get a little more dexterous with your fingers and start with a C chord and then jump into a G chord. So practice going through the 3 chords you've learned so far. I want you to practice that G, get into that C, and then jump into the A, you know, and try mixing it around. Start with a different chord, move to a different chord. Don't just get familiar with moving from G to A, try moving from A to G. Try moving from C to G. Try moving from G to C. You know, do it in a different pattern. That way your fingers don't get trained on one particular way to move. They're ready to move on their own in any pattern that needs to happen. So get used to playing that open chord. And then again, get your fingers in a position. That way you can bar them. So we move them up 2 frets, and then I barred here, and I remove my low bass note. And I'm able to get my A chord and move it up the neck. Keep moving it up the necks until you get familiar with what chord you're actually playing. It's important to know that you're playing in a G shape, and even though you're playing in a G shape, it's a different chord note that you're playing. So when you come up and come up and come up, I want you to be able to look at your low bass note that you are not playing or are playing, depending on how far your fingers can stretch, and determine what chord you are actually playing in the G bar form. So again, if you have any questions on this particular lesson, or you feel like I need to amend this at all and just give you a little more information to really grasp all this information for yourself, let me know in the comments below. Let me know on my Facebook page. I'd be more than happy to help you out. Stay tuned next week. I'm going to go over my E chord, and then we're finally going to go over the D chord the following week, and that will conclude CAGED Theory's basic lesson. From there, we'll be able to teach you a little more and add to those kinds of topics from there. It's important that you learn the basis of this. That way we can expand from there. So again, if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you for watching, and take care.